Hello, everyone. Welcome to the private back room over at Shea Nicholas Kotar. In live format, thinking that it was the backstage, and it wasn't. So I accidentally shut down the session completely. So we have to start from scratch, which shouldn't be a problem. I'm very happy to see you all here. I'm very excited to speak with Natalie, who is an absolutely brilliant composer and wonderful colleague and friend. And I am going to start by inviting her to the stage. So Natalie, would you please raise your hand again, and I'll let you back on, because I realize now that I had got it all wrong. So here we go. There we go. Just 1 second.
Yay.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay, so that was very silly of me. I apologize. I guess the backstage was no longer the backstage. It was now front stage. So welcome to front stage, Natalie. And we are now live, and we're now recording. In the previous recording, we will pretend it didn't happen. It just doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. So those of you who are with us here on Air Meet directly, this is a kind of a new and interesting platform. There's a live chat that you can talk to us on. And the cool thing about this is that after Natalie and I have had a bit of a chat, I will open the floor to your questions and answers, which you can ask in text form in the chat box, but you can also come on live by raising your hand and asking your question live, making sure that you have a mic and a camera that actually work, of course. But this platform can handle multiple people on stage. So I'm assuming you're all going to be very excited and inspired by this conversation. Not by my half of the conversation, which is doddering, but by the other half of the conversation. And the cool thing about this platform is that after we're done, you can go back into the lounge area, and then there's these virtual tables. And if you sit at these virtual tables, you can actually talk to each other as though on Zoom. So you can choose to network with people, which is fun. You know, if you all want to have a private conversation with Natalie in the back end, you can. All right, that is that. Let's get going. So Natalie, I've wanted to increase the number of things that I do on my Patreon page, because I feel kind of strongly, and I have felt strongly for a long time, as you know, that culture is not something that one simply falls into. It's something that you have to go out there and make.
Right.
And there's not a lot of good culture out there, I think, right now. In particular, when it comes to storytelling, there's a lot of unfortunate choices being made. So I've always felt it imperative to be sort of at the forefront of giving people good stories, but not simply good stories, but stories that are written and presented in a beautiful and in a fashion that is professional. So not simply, oh, I have a good story, I'm gonna schlep it out there and let people make of it what they will, but to go through the actual practice of becoming expert at something by studying the technique, by becoming better and better at it. And so I say all this because that's the context within which you and I met, because we encountered each other at the inaugural Artefact conference in Louisville, almost actually more than a year ago now. And it's funny because when I start working with people and I start getting comfortable with them, there comes a point at which I forget the moment where I actually met them, because it seems like I've always known them. So if you could refresh my memory, Natalie, how is it that we actually met?
Well, I believe it was actually the June 20 what year 2019 AFCon conference, the Ancient Faith Writers and Podcasters Conference. And I remember, well, I was an attendee, and you were actually there speaking. And you were speaking about culture creation, and that was a new term for me. But I realized that I agreed with everything you were talking about. So I got interested in your blog and your writing, and just everything you had to say about creatives. I just really resonated with what you were saying about the creative process and the need for creating culture. And so that's really where we met, even though I didn't actually meet you at the conference. I could have. I just chickened out.
Well, there were a lot of people there, and this time around it was my second time there, and I don't think there was a single moment where I was free to sort of just float around and get to know new people. It was I was one of the
that.
I don't know. I mean, I think I was one of the key. Is run by the Artefact Institute, which I'm a founding member of, and the point of it is to provide a practical, technical knowledge in various artistic disciplines to be able to do that exact thing of creating culture for people who feel a lack of it. So, how did you hear about Artefact, and what made you decide to come?
Through my church. A friend who was actually in your writing class, I believe he found the event and shared it at church, and then I was like, well, I want to go. So I figured the best way to go was as a singer. That was one of the specialties. Yes, one of the tracks offered. So that's what I wanted to learn more about. So that got me to Artefact with my
that's right. Yeah, it was a very special event. It was one where things happened in unexpected and interesting ways, and one of the things that happened completely out of the blue for me was that I think you even offered your music to me, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through that encounter?
Well, this is my favorite part, because I think this is how God really works between creatives when they can't get themselves together on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the week before you posted on Facebook that you were going to do a Russian fairy tale retelling podcast, I had, and bear in mind, throughout the whole year, I was just, keeping track of your work and really getting interested in what you were writing about. So I was like, if he ever does a podcast, I've got a theme. And the week before you posted that, I came up with the In a Certain Kingdom season 1 theme, the intro theme. And I was just like, this is really cool. And then you posted that. I was like, oh boy.
Isn't that interesting? So you wrote it before it became a thing, except it was already a thing.
It just didn't have a home yet.
Yeah. But isn't that interesting though? That does tend, I've noticed that happens a lot. And call it what you will, providence, synchronicity, something. But there's when people approach art and they have the same kind of mind and the same kind of heart towards something, then bizarre connections happen in places and times that transcend the merely forward moving progress of what would seem to be like linear time. So yeah. I think that's really great.
Yeah. So that was on my end. That was what was happening.
Well, I'll tell you that I sometimes when people come up to me, offering, it's happened several times that people have come up and have offered to share their creative work with me. More often than not, it's in the written sphere, and I've gotten better at framing kind of the manner in which I am able to accept people's contributions in writing, because not everybody, and this is me putting it nicely, not everybody is at a level where their writing should be shared. So there are times when you encounter someone and they have a lot of enthusiasm and they offer you this thing and it's their heart offered in this thing. So you want to be gentle with it, but the technique or the artistry just isn't there sometimes. Yeah. So when you came to me with this, we were all in a very good mood, and I thought, this is great. I have high hopes for this, and somewhere in the depth of my heart, I was like, okay, prepare your sort of happy face that is neutral and that won't say anything, just in case.
Right.
But I didn't have to fake anything, because it just flabbergasted me. Not least because you're not Russian.
Right. Not an ounce of me.
and the music is Russian. It's 100% Russian soul right there. So that's really interesting.
That's Celtic and Russian. That's the database of my music in my head. So there's a lot of similarity there, by the way. There's a lot in common. Yeah. And the more I listen to Russian folk music, the more I've seen the parallels. It's really fascinating. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit, how did you get started composing music in general?
Well, I come from a family of musicians, artists, and engineers. And many of the musicians are also composers. Uh-huh. And so it's been modeled to me my whole life, that the joy of music, to me, it's in creating it. And so I've been making music for as long as I can remember. And my dad especially was the person closest to me, or is the person closest to me who models the joy of music through composition. So he was always playing the piano, and I naturally wanted to do it too. So, just took off from there. And even more, like, as I was, I started taking piano lessons at 9 and continued all the way through, my college year. And then, even through learning classical music, it still wasn't as joyful as what I could make on my own. But yet the finesse of that framework of learning classical music, that just poured into my technique and made it much more refined than it could have ever been on its own. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got started with the composing side.
Have you done what have you done in terms of commissioned pieces, or how does that work? Have you published any of your work, or?
I just recently did, actually. Melinda Johnson just published the Saint Aya Rides a Leaf book, and she and Christina Tartara, the illustrator, they asked me to write a song to go along with their book. So I am published now. So I sang and played the Saint Aya song. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Cool.
And that's on.
And where can people find that?
It's on Ancient Faith, or will very, very soon be. And it's also on St. Vladimir Seminary Press.
The book is, but what about the music? Is there a special place they can download the music itself, or is that like a separate audio file?
Both. So you can find the audio file for download on the same link that you buy the book. And then the MP3 file is soon to be coming on both platforms as well. So you might someday just turn on Ancient Faith Radio and hear your music playing there randomly. Possibly.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And so now you're sort of heading out into the dangerous waters of composing as a living. Is that right?
Yeah. Or at least In a Certain Kingdom is definitely my springboard project and currently biggest project. So I don't have any idea where I'm going after this, but hopefully, I mean, it would be great to score, a film or something, something to get me there. I mean, I'm nowhere near ready to do that yet, but that would be really cool.
Can you talk us through some of the process of what it's like to compose music for in a certain kingdom? Is it how does it work? Do you come with the music first? Do you read the stories first? Do they come together in any way? How do you make it score so well?
So, as listeners, you hear the music under the story, and the music the story in relationship with the music is such that at least this is how I think it is. That the story is what's happening, and then the music supports that. And so on my end, because I get to hear all of this put together different tracks in the library that I was pulling from to score each individual episode. And so I'd use the same track in a totally different episode, and it would sound completely different because it had a different effect. It was supporting it differently. It was supporting it with bringing out a different emotion or a different color, something. So that is the part that comes alive for me. Because I have no idea what the episode is going to sound like before I score it. And I just kind of go along for the journey. And it's like, I don't know, it's like archaeology, like kind of just uncovering. And then there it is. And it's all finished. And it's really,
I mean, it's really amazing because I think initially we weren't really thinking about scoring the entire story. The musical elements we're going to provide some. I mean, I was really thinking on my end of something like the Myths and Legends podcast, which I don't particularly listen to. It's the biggest one in the space, but I'm not really crazy about it personally. But they do have sort of musical hints that come in at the beginning of a new thought and kind of fade away. But it's not an entirely scored podcast, and so the number of clips that you had of music, the number of thoughts of completed thoughts was perhaps not as much as you would have liked as a composer, because initially you only wrote a certain number, and then suddenly here comes the writer with these long, convoluted and strangely bizarre stories. So how are we taking care of that problem for the second season?
I overcompensated. The library for season 2 is 41 tracks. And I also realized the other night that I forgot to record 3 additional ones that I meant to record.
Okay, surprise.
You haven't even heard them. So we'll figure out a fun way to share those. I'll do those, at my home piano, and share the ones that didn't cut it. Because for season 1, so when I initially showed you what music I wanted to use, or just that was my resume. It was like, here's what I got. I had 3 tracks, the intro included. And you were like, oh, this is more than enough. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. Because I was thinking of more like Peter and the Wolf style, but even more than that. And then taking it to a new level with season 2, like trying to have as few gaps as possible. And I also came up with a sound effects kind of library that is a sublet of within the 41 tracks. So there will be like climbing chords or like things to accentuate, whatever the story brings out. So I'm excited to use those and play around.
I mean, I really want to highlight how interesting and how collaborative this effort is, because let's take somebody like Benedict Sheehan, who works in the same realm as you do, in the sense that he scores completed stories. He's already done 2 full length. Oh well, I mean, yeah, he's already scored 2 complete fairy tale narratives.
Yeah.
But he has the story way before he writes. And now he and I are working on a collaborative project that's doing a little bit of both. He sees some of the story, and then some of the story he doesn't. So there's an interesting kind of. But what you do is you write the music independently of me telling the stories.
Yeah.
And yet the music still comes together in really interesting ways. In ways that when I'm listening to the story for the first time with the music, because of course you send them to me for
final
inspection. Yes. The first season, came out in a time when it was still quite warm and nice to be outside for extended periods of time. So I'd put on my headphones, and I'd go take a long walk to the local lake. And there were times where I would jump and yelp, in emotional, support, because I was like, I am moved by this, even though it's my voice telling the story. I'm like, this shouldn't affect me. I know what the story is, but the music really brings it out in some really fascinating ways. So where does your musical inspiration come from then? How does that work?
Well, I do some listening to Russian music, and then but for season 1, I didn't do much of that, actually. I was just drawing from what I had already in there. So that's probably equal parts Rachmaninoff and Tchaikovsky, and Orthodox hymnography as well, because I want it to feel very home-like, and Russia, and just Mother Russia, very home. So that's where I draw from. But like now, I'm done with season 2 now, but for season 2, I had a few elements, like just certain motifs come out, or just chord progressions that was like, oh, that's Swan Lake, or that's, something from this other thing, Rachmaninoff second piano concerto, whatever. But I also found this specific piece, and I was going to write it down so I could share exactly what it was, because you just have to listen to it. I'll share it. I'll find it and you can share it somehow. But that was the inspiration for season 2, because I listened to this one track. It's maybe like a 3-minute piano song by a Russian composer, played by, I think, a Russian pianist. And I just couldn't stop listening to it, so it's, I had my earbuds in, out, walking streets and just conducting like a crazy composer, just because I'm enjoying it so much. And so a lot of the chord, and I just try to memorize what makes those sounds happen, and how can I not copy and paste, but how can I marinate in that and then churn it out in my own way. And that was the result with season 2. I bet if you listen to that song, you'd be able to tell. Yeah, because it's not directly how that is, but I'll find certain things that I want the flavor of the entire season to feel like, and I'll just immerse myself in those sounds, and then start picking out patterns that I want to just kind of keep and put somewhere. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What is your experience with Russian fairy tales before this? Did you read any of them before? 0. Okay then.
Just Hans Christian Andersen and Brothers Grimm for me, pretty much.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw you a curveball. Have you heard Pictures at an? Have you ever heard Pictures at an Exhibition before this?
No, and you asked me that. Yeah, I don't think I have.
That's crazy, because it's like it's exactly the same kind of music, and how you have not listened to it yet, I don't know. Like listen to it.
Well,
it'll give you some really interesting additional themes, I think, because that's Russian fairy tales right there in musical form.
Nice.
But still, hey, it doesn't matter, I guess, because the music brings out the natural rhythm of the stories, even though you've never read them before. So I guess it doesn't matter.
I found the process.
I guess. But how does that play, though? How does this lack of how does that play into how you compose for Russian fairy tales then? If you haven't had any experience of them, you must be taking from something. So how does that work?
Right. Well, so like I said, like listening to fresh music, and also taking time to just remember what I have in me already. I just spend a lot of the time at the piano just messing around, and a lot of stuff just kind of bubbles to the surface the more Russian flavor I'm experimenting with. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot I knew that, or I forgot that. So with like for season 1, for example, I have all in key of E minor. And then I decided to just play the theme in D minor, just move it up a whole step. And then all of the season 2 flavor just kind of sprang out at me. And I was like, okay, this unlocks everything. So I was like, okay, it's got to be in D minor. And then I tried the same thing again. I'm already working on season 3 music. So I've got, I'm in F sharp minor. So that's up a whole step from E minor. Yeah. And so that'll be a really challenging key, though, because that's a lot more black keys. So like it challenges me as a pianist. It challenges me just creatively. So, and that's how I bring it. I feel like the freshness of the music comes out with that just switch with each season. So,
well, I mean, that's really fascinating, because it's not simply a matter of some trick that you implement to get your brain to go into higher gear. You have to have a lot of time and a lot of energy to stew inside music. Yeah. But you have 5 kids. How do you do this? How? When?
Yeah. So I have these just time chunks where I it's just part of our daily rhythm, and we homeschool too. So we'll get all school done. We'll get all school done in the morning through, beginning afternoon. And then after that, everybody knows I'm going to be working at the piano. So I spend at least an hour at the piano. And then when I'm editing, that's afternoon. So I get that done in the in the afternoons. And I'm, playing in the evening, playing, my husband cooks for us.
Aha. Secret ingredient. Yes. A significant other who cooks. Very important.
Secret weapon. I couldn't do the bulk of what I do without him enabling it.
No kidding. No, that's you're very lucky. Not all men can cook.
Yeah.
But the ones that can.
He's a keeper. He's very
That's awesome. That's wonderful. But still, I mean, I'm thinking about for myself and how the writing process takes sometimes a lot more than simply, a time chunk of 1 or 2 hours to get stuff out. Just to hush the noise, to get to a point where you can let the words flow out the way they're supposed to, because we're surrounded by so many distractions, so much stuff that's constantly tugging at our attention. You must have tremendous focus to be able to use that 1 hour of intense time to your advantage.
I think I do. I'm able to tune out a lot of what happens peripherally and just zone in on what I'm doing when I'm at the piano. Yeah.
Well, it means it's already in you. So that's a tip for all you artists out there. You need to spend the time in advance to really soak up the inspiration, so that at the point where you have to hit the play button, it can happen without you trying to push too much.
Yeah.
Something I forget about.
Yeah. Yeah. Just play the thing that's going to make me feel the most joy. And that's the kickstart that'll get going.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So what surprises do you have in store for us for season 2 and beyond?
Well, I'm really excited to see how these sound effects play in. That's kind of the different thing about season 2 music. And while they're not exactly like what people would think of as sound effects of like noises, I didn't get like 20th century music on anybody.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah. It's not going to be anything like that. Even though that would be fascinating, but I won't.
No. not for this podcast.
So it'll just be like smaller vignettes of it won't be like a full like 30-minute to minute interlude that I'll use. It'll be like 5 seconds or 10 seconds, just smaller, and meant to kind of, creep along in the background and be less noticeable. That's my idea of what the sound effects purpose will serve. And then for season 3, so for season 2, just the nature of what you're doing with the fairy tales in general, like, I've been curious, can you tell me what your plan is for season 3? Because I don't even know what that is. Season 1, you're not sure.
I'm not sure. I have an idea.
Cool. So for season 1 was what was the overarching theme of season 1 episodes?
It was sort of the best hits. Yeah, of the Russian fairy tales, like the ones that you're going to encounter the most often, the ones that hit the zeitgeist beyond merely Russia, and also the ones that every Russian who has grown up with these fairy tales will be like, oh yeah, I know that one.
Nice. So
for the most part, I mean, one. yeah. And
then
that's for the idea. And
cool.
Season 2 is different. Season 2 is epic heroic poetry. So the Russian tradition has a series of tales about superhuman warriors that are called былины, and they're an entirely separate genre. They don't even sound like the fairy tales that I told in season 1. They're all written in verse. I don't think we're going to be doing this in verse, people. I did the last fairy tale in season 1, the 10th or the 9th fairy tale, episode 10 in the podcast count. I actually managed to do what was effectively verse, because it wasn't rhyming, but there is a regular rhythm to it, and I couldn't believe I did it because I'm not a poet at all. But there was something about the structure of that story that lent itself naturally to an almost exactly repeating rhythm. So I don't know if you call it poetry, but it basically is some sort of a verse. But this time around, even though it's epic heroic poetry, it's not going to be in poetic form. I'm just gonna it's gonna be full on fantasy. I'm just gonna let it go. So it's gonna be less about verisimilitude or being true to the original. It's gonna be more of a retelling, I think.
Nice.
In season 3, I'm thinking of dramatizing the entire story of Ruslan and Lyudmila, which is one of Pushkin's fairy tales. It's based on an old Russian fairy tale, but it's a long narrative poem. It's a single story that's, I think the printed version must be around 50 pages long. So it would be a season that would be one story.
Neat.
Going over an entire season. It's a wonderful tale. It's got a lot of the tropes that you find in many of the other fairy tales. It doesn't have Baba Yaga, unfortunately.
Sorry.
But it has a different villain who's almost as good. So I'm excited, but we'll see. Maybe we won't do that. Maybe we'll do something else. Who knows?
Cool. I'm excited. Whatever it is, I'm ready.
Excellent. Well, I think it's time we shared some of the music. So
I agree.
Those of you, dear listeners, who are here with us, this platform, like I mentioned, is new, and I'm still working at the kinks. So we're going to try to get this in as good quality as we can. At the very least, what we're going to do is just have Natalie play it out so that our mics can pick it up. But in theory, you should be able to share sound. So,
okay. How do I share sound?
So you share a screen.
Share screen.
And you go to the screen that has the musical, the music app on it, and it should allow you the option of sharing the sound as well.
Sorry, where's share screen? Oh,
it's the little arrow in the box. Yeah.
Got it. Sorry, I keep finding things exactly as I ask about it. All right. I believe Chrome tab.
By the way, as Natalie's looking, inside this this platform, you have the option of sharing reactions in emoji form. So underneath the video portion, you could actually share all kinds of interesting images, like that light bulb that I just shared with you all. So that sends you inspiration, Natalie.
Maybe it'll help me find more.
Yeah, and we also have the live chat. So if you have any questions or things you want to add, go ahead and do that there.
Okay,
I'm
at the application window. Yeah. What do I do now?
You press on it, and then you probably just ask it to share. Oh, there she goes. We've lost Natalie. There she is. Let's get her back.
Sorry. All right.
It's okay.
Not doing that again. I'm just going to put that on my screen here.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Thumbs up if you can hear this. Here is the intro for season 2. All right.
So my immediate impression when I first heard it was, okay, there's that sinister note. There's that little things are not as they seem, which is of course the thing in Russian fairy tales that everybody goes, what? Where did that come from? So that was a really cool addition to the first season music. And we're not going to share season 3, but it's even better, I think. So it keeps
a little more epic. It's
yes.
Season 3 wraps it all up for me.
Yeah. The sound isn't ideal, unfortunately, but I think we got enough of it to give everybody a taste. Was there anything else you wanted to share?
Sure. Could I share my favorite track?
Yes. I'm gonna turn my sound off so it comes across better.
Okay. This will give you a taste of the flavor, I think.
I'm glad you picked that one. I like that one a lot.
Me too.
Well, that's what you have to expect, everyone. This is going to be a really, really fun season. I am starting to record it tomorrow, so this is this is big. I've been putting it off, but it's time. It's time to get back into that crazy world. And just so you know, season 1, the stories from season 1 have now actually been published in text form. So the ebook is available. The paperback is soon to be available. But if any of you would like to purchase it, just keep an eye out on all retailers. It's going to be available. It's on pre-order on some, and it's already available on others. So keep an eye out on that. And the really cool thing is that we're going to choose the best ones from first 2 seasons, and we're going to do a special Kickstarter to raise money for a limited edition, fully illustrated hardcover version of In a Certain Kingdom with illustrations. I can't say who by whom because we don't yet have any official contract in place, but this author is this artist, also author, is one of my favorites. Really, really beautiful work. So that's something to look forward to also. But today's session is not about me, it's about Natalie. So Natalie, tell us all where people can find you and your professional composing work in case somebody needs to hire you, for like another fairy tale podcast or something.
So you can find me at my website, which is nwcomposing.com. You can email me at nwcomposing@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook, which is just Natalie Christine Wilson. I had Natalie Christine composing or Natalie Wilson composing on there, but I can't remember my login. So it's off. I do all my stuff through my personal account on Facebook. And then I'm also on Instagram, which is Natalie Wilson composing, all spelled out. So that's where I am.
All those links will be put in the notes for the respective YouTube video when this goes up for public consumption, because this particular session we're doing live, but not publicly. So keep an eye out on that. Those of you who are here from my Patreon community, and those who are not in my Patreon community, what are you waiting for? This is only the first of many such encounters. I'm going to be talking with Benedict and Talia Sheehan next month, where we're going to be talking about another huge project that we're doing that involves storytelling and music. So that's something that's coming up. So yes, come and join. We have a lot of fun over here in Patreon land. But for today, that's it. I've had a long week. I'm sure it's only Tuesday, but it's already been a long week. I'm sure you have as well. Oh, you mother of 5. So I think this is a good time to call it a night.
Yes, time to put kids to bed.
Oh, they're not bed yet. Oh, mine are. See,
no.
My wife put them to bed today. Don't.
So you have a super person.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do. She does the cooking too.
Somebody's got to take care of us creatives.
That's right, and she's a creative too, poor thing. So sometimes I have to remember that and do the cooking too. Otherwise.
That's good.
Anyway, thanks so much for coming out, Natalie. This was a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me. This was a blast. Thanks.
All right. See you soon.
See you.